Come on and wake up.
The point is to be a mirror, okay? So your job, your task is to let them know that you heard what they said. It's not to do it like a parrot. It's also not to add anything to it. So you've got to reflect to them to where they feel satisfied that you got their meaning, that you got what they said. Now, here's the thing about reflecting. When you're reflecting and you say, here's what I heard you say, and they say, oh, well, what I meant was, and you say, no, 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 that's what you said. No, you can't do that because you're the listener. So the reflection process is one of helping them to clarify, because when they hear what you heard or when they hear what they actually did say, you might say exactly what they said, and they said, oh, well, I want to add this to it. That's fine. That's why you still have the ears, okay? When this is all done, you're going to pass the ears, but you're keeping them for now because you're still the listener. Even though you're reflecting and clarifying, A is still the talker, which means it's okay for A to interrupt B, but it's not okay for B to interrupt A, because B is the listener. So if as B I reflect something to A and A says, oh, that's not quite what I wanted to say, then A has the prerogative to change it, and you cross it off and change it. Okay? So the first time A actually says that, okay? A says, I sat in the restaurant for an hour and a half when I would have preferred to go do something else, okay? Or I would have preferred to be at home watching Netflix while I was waiting for you, okay? When you reflect back, the reason this is not just reflecting, it's reflecting and clarifying. When you reflect that back, some thought might come up for A. A says, I was in the restaurant waiting for an hour and a half, and if I would have known ahead of time, I would have just went home and watched Netflix instead of waiting by myself at the restaurant. Okay. Now, when B reflects back, and B says exactly what A said, and B says, what I heard you say is, you were waiting at the restaurant for an hour and a half, and if you would have known ahead of time, you would have stayed home and watched Netflix while you were waiting. Okay? That's exactly what A said. Okay, now, A might think of something else that they wanted to add to that in the reflection and clarifying period. Okay? So you're not just reflecting, you're also clarifying. Okay? So if when you say that, A thinks of something else and says, I was actually kind of mad because, or I did call you 3 times and you never picked up your message. Okay, so now, that's an addition. A has the prerogative to clarify, or clarify what they meant. They might, like if I said, you were disappointed for waiting for an hour and a half, and then A says, actually, I was angry. Okay? And then you say, oh, okay, well, actually, you were angry. Okay? So in that reflecting and clarifying period, if they change anything, you just reflect that, because it's also a clarifying period. Okay? So here's the thing that can happen. While I'm reflecting to A, and I reflect back what they said, and they say, no, da-da-da-da-da, I have to let that go. Because people they're like, well, that is what you said. I did say this right. See, when they say no, they're not saying, no, you got it wrong. They're saying, no, I need to make it more, I need to make it more clear. I need to clarify something. I might not have said it right the first time. So a lot of times, couples who escalate things into arguments are arguing about right and wrong. Well, you didn't say that. I did say it right. No, wait, but this is not about right or wrong. This is not, don't be attached, don't let your ego get attached to, I'm a good reflector. It doesn't matter. You're there to tell them what they said so they can then think about it and think, is this really what I meant? Is this really what I wanted to say? Because when they hear you tell them back, maybe you might say something like, you felt angry that I was not at the restaurant for an hour and a half, and they may say, you know, maybe angry wasn't the right word. Or they might say, no, actually, I think it was 2.5 hours, now that I think about it. Right? So when A hears B reflecting, it helps them to clarify what they said the first time, and maybe they're going to go, wait a minute, wait, I need to say it like this. Okay? They're not saying you got it wrong. They're just making sure through the second time around, as they hear and you reflect for them, they're just making sure that that is the actual message they want to tell you, whether it came out that way the first time or not. So don't be attached to thinking if they change it, you got it wrong. That's not what it's about. It's just that you're helping them to clarify by reflecting back to them what they said. Okay? And that's all. So you're going to keep it clean. They're going to go, you're going to reflect, they're going to clarify, you're going to reflect again. If they change something, you reflect the change. And you just reflect and reflect and reflect and reflect. And you keep doing that until they feel satisfied that you got what they said with the meaning they meant it in. Okay? So if you might have said everything they said perfectly on spot, but they felt like, well, I don't know that you really got the meaning I meant it in. Like maybe they said, now I felt disappointed, and that's because I love you, and I want us to be able to trust each other, or something like that, right? And the way you reflect it back sounded like you felt disappointed because now you think I'm not good enough for you, right? So then they say, well, no, that's not the meaning. That's not the meaning I meant. I meant this. Okay, this is what I'm telling you. I'm not telling you that you're bad or you're wrong, or you have to do this. I'm not making any demands. I'm just sharing with you what I was experiencing in that moment, right? And you go, oh, okay. So you felt disappointed in that moment and you wanted me to know that. Yes, that's it. No blame, no judgment, just sharing my experience, okay? So there's no right and wrong. It's just a reflection. So you just write it down and reflect, okay? While this is happening, you might get energetically triggered, and that's okay. Just take a breath. You might even say, hold on a minute, I need to take a minute, okay? And you just take your notes, and you just stay with your notes, and you don't say anything. Just know that you're just a listener. Now, that's why this structures and frameworks are so important, because when people start attacking each other and not listening to each other, that's when things escalate out of hand. So this keeps a framework around it, keeps a structure around it. It's like rules of a game, right? If the NBA, if they were playing basketball and they didn't have a rule that said you can't elbow someone in the face, you know how many people would get elbowed in the face? So this keeps it safe. It's like this. I call this type of a framework, or this type of a ruled game, I call it controlled fires, because we're going to keep it from escalating. We're going to stay in the rules, and we're going to be able to sit and be with what's happening without going off the rails, okay, without getting frustrated and yelling and angry and feeling like we have to punch a wall or punch somebody, right? So just going to keep it controlled, okay? And the reason I call it controlled fires is because it reminds me, because you are doing something that could get out of control. It's not always safe, depending on what kind of environment you have built in your home, right? Because depending on what kind of communication tools you already have and you're already aware of, which, by the way, if you...
Come on and wake up. Listen to your heart now. See what's going on. We can make it together. We can find a way. Co-creations, new generations. You're a champion. You already won. Never fear, because you're here.